Good morning, guys. All right, so our target for today is that we're going to work on a lesson today about story plot, okay? We're also going to learn what a plot is and to be able to go ahead and describe plot. That's going to be our target for today, okay? Can you guys think about what is a plot? When I talk about what is a plot, what is a plot? What am I thinking about that? Oh, that's a tough one, right? Okay, when we talk about a plot, you guys are right. It's about what happens in a story. It's going to be the series of events that make up a story, okay? It's going to include the problems that the characters face and how they're going to try and solve them, okay? All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pass these out. These are going to be some handouts that I'm going to pass out that are going to be kind of like a support station for us to kind of help us learn a little bit more about plot and the parts of plot that we have, okay? All right, so I'm going to read the very first paragraph here. It says, in a story or play, the plot is the series of episodes or events that make up the story. Okay, so we talked about what a plot was. That was the first thing that we talked about, okay? So the plot is going to be that episode or series of or events that make up the story. These episodes are moments in the story that are going to be driven by conflict or struggle or like a problem that the main character tries to overcome, okay? Like a trail of footprints, the episodes in a plot lead to the resolution or like the solution or the end of the conflict, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna look at these images below, okay? All right, well, when I look at these images below, okay, I'm gonna look at the first one, and I'm gonna look at the second one, and I'm gonna look at the third one, okay? What happens is that in each of these episodes below, each of these episodes is gonna lead to the building of the next episode, okay? So when we look here, right here, it's gonna say right here, stored at sea causes the boat to crash, okay? The survivors are faced with a problem. They've got a problem, like, oh my goodness, how are we gonna get home, right? Absolutely. So now they're gonna go ahead and write a message to signal for help, okay? All right, so now when we look down here, now we're gonna go ahead and when we look at this, we're gonna go ahead and see how we can go ahead and break apart each part of the plot here, okay? When we look down here first, we're gonna look at the word exposition, okay? When I say exposition, that's gonna introduce the characters. Who did we meet in the story? The setting, where did this all happen? And it's gonna set the stage for what's gonna happen, okay? So when we looked at this, at our little comic strip right here, we see that exposition, there's a storm at sea, and it's causing the boat to crash on the rocks, okay? Absolutely, that's the first thing that's happening. They're gonna crash on a little tiny island, okay? Next thing we're gonna talk about is that rising action. The rising action is gonna be the events in which a conflict is introduced and the problems are gonna increase and leading to that climax or that turning point, okay? So sure enough, they're gonna go ahead, they're gonna, the search planes are going to miss the island. They can't find them. Now they're going to go ahead and do an SOS signal to please, somebody's going to have to find these people, right? Absolutely. Okay. Now it builds up to that climax, right? The climax is like the most important thing. Like when we look at that climax, it's going to be that turning point of the story, okay? They're like, all right, we've got to do something. We are like desperate, right? Here we go. Last chance. They're going to go ahead and send the SOS bottle to them. Absolutely. Okay. All right, now we get to that falling action, okay? Falling action is the events that, now this is where they're gonna try and solve that solution. Oh, I forgot, you see my hand kind of going up like this. Yeah, I'm gonna start and talk about it already since I already introduced it. When we talk about that, when I think about all the parts of plot, I kind of think of it as a roller coaster. You know, when you guys go to like Six Flags or you guys go to like Universal Studios or something like that, right? So exposition, you first get on the railroad, or not on the railroad, on the roller coaster. You get on, right? Everything's easy. And all of a sudden you start to climb up at your exposition, right? Okay. Now we got that rising action. Okay. Now we're leading up to that point where you're just about to that top of that tower, right? Where it's like starting to get really scary, right? Your climax. And then as you go down, that's your falling action, right? That's where you're going to go ahead and you've got those events leading right into that conflict, and then you smooth out, and that's your resolution. It's your final outcome. Okay, absolutely. So going back to here, if you look right here, we were talking right there, we were getting to that climax part, and that's where I started to do this. Absolutely. Climax is where we see our climax. That's going to be that turning point. Okay, here the supplies are running out. Last thing they're going to be able to do now is they have to send a message in a bottle. Okay, then we look at that falling action. When we look at the falling action, that's going to be those events that are going to lead to solving the conflict, kind of like that solution like we talked about. And the following action would be a fisherman from a nearby island finds the bottle, which is kind of exciting. Resolution is the final thing that's going to go ahead and happen. It's going to kind of finalize our story, and the fisherman's going to rescue the survivors, okay? Absolutely. Alrighty. Okay. So now what we're going to do is now I have another story that I'm going to hand out to you. And we used this plot diagram to kind of help us out. It's a great little map, and we're going to hold on to that because we're going to be able to use this when we read this next story. So we're going to use this next story. It's called Alma's First Cattle Drive. Okay. We're going to read the first part of the story, and we're going to complete another plot diagram. As you can see, it's right here. To show the rising action and the climax, okay? So I'm going to pass these out to you guys. Okay, pass these out, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read aloud to you guys Alma's First Cattle Drive. You guys can follow along with me, and then we'll go ahead and go from there. Blinding lightning flashed across the sky, followed by deafening thunder and driving rain. Alma had grown up listening to her father's astounding stories of cattle drives. She had always wanted to join in, but her father told her she wasn't ready. Now she was finally given her chance to prove to him that she would be more help than trouble on the trail. This was her first cattle drive, and the weather was Alma's first challenge. When they reached the river, Alma instantly noticed that the water was dangerously high. When the cattle began to cross at a shallow spot, Alma was the only one to notice a calf getting swept up in the current. Alma charged into the water and stopped her horse downstream from the calf to keep it from losing its footing. Okay, wow, holy smokes, that's kind of scary, right? All right, so now, what I was wondering is, how does the story's plot build to that climax, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a strategy called the Think Aloud. All right, well, when I look at this very first paragraph right here, the very first paragraph of the story is going to relate to that exposition, okay? That's when we first get on that roller coaster. It's going to describe the setting. The setting is a trail, but it's a terrible storm out right now. Introduces the characters, right? The people that we're going to meet. We meet Alma and her father, and it says also that Alma wants to prove that to her father that, you know what, she can help on this cattle drive. She's going to be a valuable team player, but the bad weather is definitely going to make it a challenge, okay? And this problem is the conflict that's going to introduce that rising action, okay? So where have we seen this diagram before? Oh, we saw it right over here, okay? So what it's going to help us out with is we are going to go ahead and we read that first part. We already talked about how it's going to go ahead and build to a climax. If we look at this, the first part is already filled out for us. The exposition, she goes on her first cattle drive, but there's a terrible storm. Remember, we're talking about that setting right here and the characters that we've met. Then we go into that conflict, the problem. What's going on here? Almost struggling to prove to herself, to her father, and to herself to keep the animals on the cattle drive, and she's going to be safe. But you know what? There's a terrible storm out there, so it's going to be tough. So now we're going to have to get to that rising action, okay? So now when we look to see that, as the story's going to be starting to unfold, we're going to notice that the cattle are going to begin to cross the river, and Alma is the one that notices a calf getting swept up in the current. This is going to build on that conflict, okay? And that's going to help us with that rising action right there, okay? So with that rising action right there, that's where we could go ahead and put that a calf is starting to get swept up into that high water, right? Because we know that that rising action is going to be building upon that conflict. We already know that those animals, unfortunately, water's pretty high, so it's not very safe for them right now. Absolutely. Okay, so that's what we're going to put right there. And we could go ahead and say that a calf starts to get swept up into the high water. We can go ahead and put that right there. So when we look here, we already completed our rising action, okay? So now that rising action is going to build to our climax, okay? So now it's getting exciting. So that rising action is building to the climax. The story says that when Alma notices the calf, she charged into the water and stopped her horse downstream to keep the horse from losing its footing. I think this is the moment of suspense. I really do. I think so. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and put that right here in our last box in the climax, okay? That Alma protects the calf by stopping her horse downstream, okay? She charges into the water Super exciting right there. Absolutely. That's going to build up to our climax, okay? All right. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep continuing, okay? We're going to keep continuing reading about Alma and her cattle drive. Then what we can do is, as you guys are reading, we can go ahead and we can use these little hints right here and these little close reading bullets to help us out, to remind us to underline the sentence where we're showing the end of Alma's results. Here we go. All right. So what we're going to do is you guys are going to read the text, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about it. So I'm going to give you a second just to go ahead and read the text. All right, at this point, the kids will have answered or read the text, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the correct answer. Okay, thanks guys for go ahead and reading your best and circling the correct answer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, it says, which sentence shows the best resolution of the story? A, she was cold and hungry, but she kept her horse on the edge of the shallow riverbank until each animal had safely passed. B, Alma stayed there in the stinging rain, her horse breathing hard beneath her. C, when she finally rode ashore, her father waved to get Alma's attention. D, Alma knew that she had proven herself to be a valuable member of the team. So when we look at these, there are some choices that make it a little tricky, but we look at choices A and B. Those are not going to be correct. The reason why A and B are not correct is because they're describing the falling action, not the resolution. Choice C, no, that's not also going to be correct either, okay? Because Alma's father waves to her to get her attention so she can acknowledge the good job she did. This is part of the resolution, but it doesn't best describe the resolution, okay? Choice D is going to be the correct one. The story's conflict involves Alma's quest to prove herself to her father. This text tells that Alma knew she had proven herself to him. Okay, so that would be the best one right there. When we look at this, you can go ahead and show your thinking. You can go ahead and write a sentence right there, and then we can turn and talk with a partner about our answers. We explain how you could tell which choice was the resolution of the story, why you thought it was the correct one. Give you another second for that. Okay. All right. All right, you guys did a great job of that. Absolutely. And thank you. I like that you were able to choose answer D because you knew that that was going to be part of the resolution. Good job. All right. So now I have one last thing for you guys. This is something that you guys are going to do now all on your own because you guys have definitely built your muscles with this part. This is going to be an independent text that I'm going to give you. It's going to be a text passage from Black Beauty, okay? And what we're going to do is we've talked a lot about what we've learned about reading and carefully recognizing the plot elements. I'm going to have you guys go ahead and read this story on page 58 and 59. Do not forget, please, to circle or underline important parts. And then what I'd like you to do is, this is kind of like the test practice that you guys are going to see. So they have formatted it just like there would be for our test practice. So I'd like you to also go ahead and answer questions 1 through 3 and circle the correct answer. And then for question number 4, it is going to be a little short answer right there. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull small groups in just a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and go over the Black Beauty text together during our small groups. And we're going to go ahead and talk about why you chose what you did. All right. And don't forget to use these as your support station. Remember, this was a really good one that we talked about. Remember, think about your roller coaster. And then also don't forget this helped you out too, using that, because that is a great support station to help you out with this text. All right. Thanks. I'll see you guys soon.